Myself, Jaideep Reddy, working as a full stack developer in Sindra IT. Yeah. And today we are going to discuss about the APIs and do some hands-on project like creating API and consume that API and do that practically in system. Yeah. Let's dive into today's agenda and what we are going to discuss in this session. Yeah. Firstly, we are going to discuss about the APIs. What is the API and how the API works. And secondly, we're going to discuss about the SQLLite database. And after that, we need to discuss about the MongoDB database. And after that, we will do some practical session on how to create APIs in both web applications and mobile applications. Let's go into the API. Yeah, some of you guys might know the full form of API, the application programming interface. Let me break down these into two parts. One is application and another one is programming interface. Application in the sense we might think it as a system or a web application or a mobile application. Between two applications, there is an interface, right, to communicate with each other. This part is called API. Between two systems, we have some interface. For communicating, we have some interface. This part is called API. Yeah. API is a software intermediary between two applications to talk to each other, right? Let me show you the example. Here we have some login form. In login form, we might write some email ID and password, right? Email ID and password. These has to be validated from database. The values has to be validated in some server, and we have to get some response, right? These values should be carried by the API to the server, and we have some data in database. We might have data in database like this. We need to validate these details with the user entered details. This is called client side and this is called server side. We need to validate both these details and give some response to the user. And another thing, the server might respond with some status code or else anything, right? To get that response from the server, we need API, right? Let me go to this PPT. Yeah. Uh, yeah.
Sorry for interrupting, Jaydeep.
Yeah.
Guys, first of all, do anyone know about API here? Yeah, Jaydeep, then move ahead from the basics.
Okay, sure. Yeah. API is somewhat like a bridge. It will carry the details from the client side to the server side, and it will get some response from the client side also. There are two things here. One is request and response. The client, let me go to this login page again. The client requests to log in here with these details. Like I have entered some email ID and password here, right? The client requests with these details to enter into the application. These details will be carried to the server, and in the server side, we will validate these details whether we have these details matched in the database or else whether the password is wrong, whether the email ID is wrong. With that response, the response is again carried by the API from the server. The response is catched in the client side, and we will display some validation errors here. Like if I click on login, it is saying some incorrect password, right? It is coming from the API. Let me show in the console. It is showing some unauthorized status code with 401. It is showing the response like this. So we have displayed the incorrect password here, right? Yeah. And we have some HTTP verbs in APIs. We have some get request, post request, put request, and delete request. Some of you might know these requests also. By using get request, we can get the details. We can get the details from the server. By using post request, we can send the details. We can send the details from the client side to the server side. We can send the details. We have used post request here, like here. we are sending these details like email ID and password to the backend, right? And we are getting some response like this. Like this, we use post request. For put request, if you use put request, we can update the details in the database. Like if you want to update email ID, any sort of password or anything in the database, we use put request. Delete request is used to delete the things in the database. By using this HTTP work, we can do all these things. And as I said to you, we have some request and response here, and we will get some response from the API, right? That response is in the form of JSON or XML format. We are expecting these two formats from the server. Okay. Let me show you some practical real life example here. Assume that it is a restaurant. In this restaurant, we have some customer and waiter and the kitchen here. The customer orders, for example, the customer ordered a biryani. Uh, the customer ordered a biryani. How does the customer orders biryani? He calls the waiter and orders the biryani, right? The waiter goes to the kitchen and asks the chef to make the biryani or else to make the biryani. Okay, and the chef makes the biryani and asks the waiter to serve to the customer, right? Yeah, that is what that happens in the restaurant, right? In the same way, assume the customer as a client side, like a website. I have shown you a login page, right? Assume that customer as a website. He is sending some request like email ID and password with the API, right? It is like waiter. He is sending some request to the API, and the API carries that request to the server. The server will respond with some details. The server will respond with some details, and again the API is carrying those details to the client side, right? It is a real time example, right? I think you might have get an idea about API now, uh, right? Anyone respond? Yeah,
Yes, Jadip.
yeah, that's great. Yeah, and this is the real time example here. Here the end user might be the app in browser or in mobile device or an Android application or else anything. Here we will request some data to the API. The API carries that request to the web server and perform some queries in the database and get those results and give that results to the API here, and API responds with some data, and the data is given to the end user, like I mean the website or else mobile application. Um, that with that data, the end user can do anything. He can display it in the mobile application or else anything. He can perform some filter operations or anything with that data. Okay. I think you might got some idea about API, right? Anyone have any doubts here regarding that API? You can raise it now. Or else we will move into next topic. Okay, I'm taking the test now. I'm going to next topic here. Yeah. Next topic is MongoDB database. I think some of you might know about MongoDB. MongoDB is a NoSQL database. It is a non-relational database. Uh, it stores the data in the form of documents and collections. It does not use any tables like you see in the SQL. It stores the data in the form of documents. Let me show you that I created one. Uh, it is a MongoDB database, and we have these databases here. Like inside this restaurant database, I have four collections here. Inside these users collections, I have some sort of documents. I have three documents here. Inside those documents, I have some values. Those values are stored in the form of key value pairs. Here the user ID is the key and the value is assigned to that user ID, right? And name is one of the key and Hitesh is another value that is uh, paid with the name. Okay, it is stored in the form of key value pairs, right? And the next point is it stores in the form of JSON. It is a format. It is a JSON format, right? It is a JSON format, and it does not have any structure. Like if you see in the SQL databases, we have to create some schema, and we have to create some table structures first, and we have to store the details in the table, right? It does not have any structure. We don't need any we don't need any type of schema here. You can randomly enter a key value pair here. If you have user ID here, in another document, you might not find user ID, right? You can store any type of data. You can store these type of data, array, binary value, and all these type of data. It has no structure for like we see in the SQL databases. Yeah. And instead of tables, we use collections. In SQL database, we use tables, columns, and rows. Right? Here we use collections. Inside this collections, we have some documents. Yeah, it is highly suitable for unstructured and semi-structured data. As I discussed, it does not have any structure. We can store the unstructured data or else semi-structured data here. Right? And it is flexible to use. It is flexible to use, right? We don't have any schema. We can directly enter the details into the database, right? It is flexible to use, right? Yeah. And nowadays it becomes more popular and become used in more e-commerce applications and social media applications. This MongoDB. Yeah. I will show you some practical example by using this MongoDB. We have done some login form. I will show you that also. And let us dive into the SQLLite. SQLLite is similar to SQL, MySQL, but it is a lightweight database. I will explain you why. Yeah, SQLLite is a self-contained database. I will explain you what is self-contained. Self-contained means the entire database is stored in one file. Like I will show you. I will show you. I have created some application for you. Um, Here I have done this server with some SQLLite database. I have created some user.db here. All the details will be stored inside this DB. We cannot open these. I will open it in the form of table. In this user.db, I have created one table. Like this, number of tables will be stored. Any table that we use in the application will be stored in this user.db. We don't have to create any external database and configure that with our application. We just need to create one user.db and we can store all the details all the tables inside this user.db. Okay, I will create one table in the practical session. Let me dive into this. Yeah, SQLite stores data in the form of tables. Unlike from the MongoDB, it stores the data in the form of tables. Like here you can see some tables and columns, right? In this format, it will store that. It is zero configuration database, like I mentioned. In other database systems like SQL, MongoDB, or PostgreSQL, and all these things, we need to configure the database first. We need to connect with the external database first, and then we need to perform the operations, right? In this SQLite, we don't need any external database, right? We have created our own database in the form of file, right? So we don't need any configurations with that because we have the database in our system itself, right? We don't need any configurations with that. Okay, and it is lightweight database. Like it stores the all details, all the databases, like I mean tables in a single file, right? So it is very lightweight. It does not require any space, any much space to store all these details. and it is an alternative for heavyweight databases. Heavyweight databases means MongoDB and SQL, all these things, right? We need to configure and we need to insert and we need to perform all these operations in that MySQL and all this, right? We need to have some separate server for that to create databases and insert and perform all these operations. Yeah, right. And SQLLite is faster. We have the database in our system itself, so it would be faster, right? It would be faster to access the data or else to insert the data or else to create the table. It would be faster for us, right? Stores the data in the client side. As I mentioned before, the database is created in our application itself, right? In our application itself. So I have mentioned this point. It stores the data in client side only, right? I have created them user.db in the client side file only, like in where we find the code, right? We have written index.js code here, and we are finding this database file here, right? Like this, the SQLite database is stored in the client side only. Yeah, and that's it with this. And let's dive into some practical example here. And the mobile application, and here is the mobile application. I made simple application for login and register here. And let me register first with my details. And let me show you the database first. It would be better. Yeah, it is the database where we are going to store our details when we got registered here. Okay, let me move this. So it is not moved. Yeah, and let me enter. I think I entered my details. Let me enter another details with another email ID. And let me give password here and click on register. We're getting some message, right? Registration successful. And if you can see here in the server page, we're getting some message printed here. Registered successfully, and the details that I entered is printed here. Let me refresh this database so that we can get these details. Yeah, you can see here. I'm getting the details I have entered here stored in this user table and the password, email ID and password is stored in this database. Let me try to log in with those details. Let me try to log in with those details. If I get logged in or else I'll show some error. 85gmail.com password and click on login. Yeah, I'm getting some error, right? You can see I entered wrong password. Yeah, yeah, you're logged in successfully, right? You can see the message here, like I logged in successfully, right? Yeah, this is the simple application I have made. I have established a connection with this front-end application and this backend server, right? I will show you how I have written some APIs and how I established the connections and all these things. Okay, let me minimize this and let me reduce the screen size. Yeah, let me reduce this. Okay. Yeah. And this is the server code. Here we can find all the APIs that I have written and the connection strings I have shown you, right? I will explain you the line to line code. Why I have written all these. Let me remove this first. Yeah, I'll explain these first. Yeah, and Express is the middleware. It is the middleware, and it is the middleware between our database and our API, right? Express is the middleware, and we are using that middleware here to establish the connection with our APIs and the database SQLite database. And we are importing the express here. It may look a different import statement, but it is similar to this import statement. Again, we can see import express from express, right? It is similar to this. It is equal to this import statement. We are importing the express here. We are importing the express into our application. And similarly, we are importing the SQLLite here, SQLLite 3. I think it is a version number. And we are importing SQL variable. I will tell you why we have created this in this later part. And we are creating some instance with our express. We are creating some instance and using that instance to connect with our API. I have said you it is a middleware to connect the API and database, right? We are creating some instance for that and storing that instance in our app variable. We will use that for connections. I will show you. I will show you that also. And this is to connect with our database. We have created some DB variable and we have used some SQLLite 3 dot database to connect with our database. Like I have created some user.db here, right? I have connected. I have used the path for that, like dot slash user.db. I have used path to connect with this file. I have used placed the path here, and after that I have used SQLLite.3 for open read write. Like I have given some permissions here, like to open the database, read the database, and write the database. I have given some sort of permissions to the user so that he can open the database, read the database, and write the database here. It is the line to give some sort of permissions to the user who the whom the application is using, right? Yeah, and this error part if you got some error, like if you got some error while connecting to the database, it will catch the error into this err variable and comes into this arrow function. And if you have any error in this err variable, the error message will be printed console log dot error message. The error message will be printed in the console, like I mean in the terminal. Else, if you don't have any errors, it will be connected. It will be connected to the SQLite database. We can print this message. Console.log connected to the SQLite database. You can see when I save this, it will got refresh. You can see the message here in the terminal. Yeah, we can see this connected to SQLite database. The message got printed in the console, right? Like this line me this if you get this line, we have successfully connected with our database, user.db database here. After that, we need to create some tables, right? We need to create some sort of tables to enter the data into the tables. So I have written these lines. Yeah, we have created some variable here, right? Globally, SQLite SQL. Inside this SQL, we have stored the queries. Like if you have ever worked with SQL, to create the database, we write this query: create table and the table name and the column names. And the column names we have to create. Like we have column right, we have email column and password column right here. Those column names should be passed inside this user, right? Yeah. By using these lines, we have created the table with these columns, email and password. We have stored the query in the SQL. We haven't run that query. To run that query, we have created some DB variable right here. Using the DB variable, db.run, and we have to pass that query inside this run function, right? We have passing that SQL query inside this run function, and this line will run that SQL query to create the table, right? I will show you. I can create another table here, user table 2, and save this and run this. If I run this, if I refresh this, I should get the table here. If we open the database once again, yeah, you can see. Another table got created, user 2. This table has empty right now. We haven't stored anything right here. So the table is empty. Uh, we have to create the table once, right? Once when the application got run. If you create a table again, if I refresh it again, you will get some error. You can see what error you are getting. Table user 2 already exists. We have created the table already, so it is showing some error. The table already exists. So I have commented out these lines. You have to run these lines only once the application runs, right? I have commented out these lines. If I save these, now I will not get any error, right? You have connected to SQLLite database. That's it. You have to comment out these lines after creating the table, right? Okay. And we have created some instance for the express right here, and we are using that instance here. API.use express.json. Express.json means we are sending, as I said you before, we are getting the response in the form of JSON or XML, right? We need to send the response and the request in the form of JSON only. So we have used express.json. App.use express.json. We have written this line to expect the response in the form of JSON and send the request in the form of JSON. So we have written this, and this is the port number. Port number in the sense the server has to run in some space, right? The server has to run in some space. So we have allocated some space in the port number 3001, and we are asking the server to listen that port number. We are asking app.listen to this port number 3000 port number, and the server is if these line got executed successfully, the server is running in the local host, and the port number is 3000. We are running the server in our system, right? So the URL will be localhost colon 3000. I will show you that also. And if the app got successfully connected here, we will print some message. We will print some message like server is running at port number, and we will print this port number. You can see the message is printed here. Server is running at port number 3000, right? Yeah. And now we have got successfully connected with our database, and we have got successfully running our server in some 3000 port, right? And now we need to perform some operations, right? We need to write some APIs here. Yeah. This is one API, sample API written for you. App.get. I have told you some HTTP verbs, right? Let me show you into this slide. Yeah, I have shown you these HTTP verbs, right? We have to use those HTTP verbs here. For example, can anyone tell me why we use get HTTP verb here? Or
To
else,
fetch the details from the database.
yeah, that's great. Yeah, we need to fetch the details from the database. It is a sample app.get, and this is the HTTP verb. After that, we need to pass the endpoint. Endpoint in the sense after the URL. I open the Postman here, or else I will open the browser itself. Every API has its unique endpoint. Unique endpoint here. It is embedded in the URL. Before this, we have some. Uh, yeah, I will show you. Before this, we have some these login HTTP localhost 3000. Before this, we don't need to write again and again. Actually, it has to be placed. We don't need to write again and again this localhost link. Actually, it is listening to this localhost 3000 port number, and the endpoint should be hello here. And after this endpoint, we are giving some request and response. As I said you before, right? Every API should contain some request and response. Yeah, we have some request and response here. And after that, we haven't take any response here as of now. If we remove this, we haven't take any response here. It is just to give a glimpse about API for you. And response, it is a response, right? RES means I'm sending some response in the format, in the JSON format, to the client, right? I'm an API request. With this text, I have sent some response to the API. Let me test that in Postman. And the Postman is used to uh, test our APIs. Test our APIs. We can test any sort of APIs here. We have all the requests here, get, post, put, and all these requests. And we need to just place our URL and the endpoint. Hello. And the endpoint is hello right here. I have used it. So I have used the endpoint as hello. Our server is running in 3000 port and it is running in our local system, right? So I have used this URL. And when I send this, it is the get request, right? I have this change to get request. And when I send this, I should get a response here. I should get a response. What response I have get here? I am an API request. That is the response we have sent right here. Response.json. I am an API request. We are catching that response inside this body, right? We are getting the exact. Forget about this. I think this should be yeah. We are getting the response here. I'm an API request, right? This is the API. We are calling the API with an endpoint. Endpoint is the unique name for every API, right? Every API, and we have some request and response, and we are sending some response to the server. That's it regarding this API. Let me jump into the register API here. Let me jump into this. Okay. And app.post. Can anyone tell me what is the post here? Yes, someone turn on their mic. Yeah, okay. No problem. I will tell you why we use post. Post request is used to get the details from the client side and post the details into our database. Okay. Yes. App.post. This is the HTTP verb and this is the endpoint. I have said you before, right? Every API has the unique endpoint, and this is the endpoint here, register endpoint. And we have got some request and response here, and we have placed these code in some try catch block. You can see try here and catch here. If we got any error, we will catch that error and console log that error here. Before that, inside what happened in the try block, I will explain you. This REQ means we are requesting some sort of details from the client side. We need to get some request from the client side, right? We are requesting this email ID and password from the client side. If you got that, if you got those details, we will store those details into these variables, email and password here. We have created some email and password variables and requesting from the client req.body. We are requesting that those details and storing those details in email ID and password. After that, we have console log those details. I will show you. Okay. After that, after explaining this, I will show you. Yeah. And we need to perform insert operation, right? We need to perform the insert operation to enter those email ID and password into our table. We need to perform the insert operation. For performing that insert operation, we have used insert into. The table name is user, right? We have used the table name and the column names. What are all the columns we are passing the data? We are passing the data into the email and password, right? We are giving that column names here and the values we are sending. We have given some question mark here, right? Why I have given the question mark? We can pass the details uh, directly into these values, right? If you have ever worked in SQL, we can do this directly. We can pass the email and password here. But in SQLLite, we need to perform this operation dynamically, so that while running that query, we can run as I shown you before, db.run create db.run SQL, right? For running the query, we use db.run. Uh, we are passing that query inside this db.run, and we are passing the email ID and password dynamically. We have stored email ID and password here, right? We are passing that email ID and password dynamically while running the query. That is the advantage in SQLLite. We are running that query. After that, if you got any error here, if you got any error, we will catch that error and print. If you have any error, we will print that message in the console log. We will print that error in the terminal, and we have to send some response to the server, to the response to the client, right? Whether the registration got successful or else the anything, right? If we got some request and we need to send them some response, right? For that response, we have sent some status code 300. Status code 300 means the registration got failure, and we are also sending the error message here. Error colon error. We are sending these response in the form of JSON, and we are sending the status code as 300, and we are passing the error message also here. If you got any error, else if you don't have any error, we will print the message here like registration registered successfully. If you got any error, the details got successfully entered in the database, right? If you haven't got any error, the registration got successfully. So we have printed these console log statement, registration successful. After that, if you send some response here in the error, it will end and come. It will end here only. It will not come all these. It will not come to all these. It will end here, and if the error is not there means, it will come to this return statement, and it will print some status code 200 here. Status code 200 means the registration got successful. Or else you can send some a message also here, like you can create some message here, and you can pass registration successful, registered successful, like this string. You can pass this also, but sending the status code is the efficient way. So I have sent the status code as 200 and the success message as true. If the success message is true and the status code is true, the registration got successful, and it will never enter into this catch block, and the details will be successfully entered into this database. Let me check these through Postman. Postman on the endpoint is on the endpoint here is register, right? Register, and we need to and this API is requesting some details, right? Email ID and password. We need to send the details in the Postman itself. In the body, you can create some JSON here, raw data, and in the JSON format. Like we are expecting the response and request in JSON format, right? So we have to send these details in the form of JSON, and we have entered email ID. We required that email ID right here. Required that email ID. So we have created that email and sent the value for the email. And for the password, we have sent the and we have set the password. Let me change this. I think I have already done this. Let me change this to gmail.com and password to hello. Yeah. You can see if I think it is post request, right? We need to change it to post request. And the API is registered and if we send this request, I'm getting the status code. You can see the status code is 200, which I have written here. You can see the response, and I have got printed here. You can see in the terminal, registered successfully. This message got printed here. And when I refresh this database, you can see the data is successfully inserted in the table also. What happened here is this data will be stored in this email ID and password. The insert query got successfully executed, and we haven't got any error here. So the console log message is printed, and we are expecting this response from the server, from the API, right? We have got successfully that. Let me check in the app that we have designed. Let me go to the register screen here and enter some username here, password here. And when I click on register, you can see here the registered successfully, and the details I have entered here got successfully printed here. And when I refresh this database, you can see the details in this. What I have entered, hitesh2181@gmail.com, and the password got saved in this table, right? I will show you how I have validated that in the front end. Yeah, in the front end, we need to use the post request, right? To use that post request, we use exhaust.post. It is a library which we have to import that. We need to install this library to use. Yeah, exhaust.post, and this is the backend URL. Like I have shown you localhost here, right? In React Native, what happens is we React Native doesn't allow you to use localhost. So you need to use the IP address of your system. Uh, we are having the local, we are running the server in our system, right? We need to use the IP address of our system here. I have written the IP address of the system here and the port number, and I am calling the endpoint. I am calling the endpoint register here, and I'm sending the server. We need to send the email ID and password, right? I'm storing uh, here. I have some input field here, and I'm storing like I will show you. Here I have some text boxes, right? If I enter these details, for example, email ID, that email ID got stored in this email ID variable, and I'm passing that email ID to the server, and similarly password. I'm passing these two details to this API. To this API, I'm catching those details here and performing these queries, and sending some response to that app, Android app, right? If I send, I have shown you, right? I'm sending some status code here. If status code is 200. If we got successfully registered, what I have handled in the front end, you can see here response dot status, and if the status code is 200, the registration got successful. I'm setting some variable here. If this variable is true, I think this message will print registration successful. I'm setting that as true, and else if I haven't got the status code as 200, I will move to this else block, right? In the else block, I'm putting some alert message. I'm putting some alert message like registration failed. Please check your credentials like this. If the status code is other than 200, the alert message got printed. And I'm placing this in try catch block. You can see if I got any error in this, it will be printed and an alert message got printed here. And this is regarding the register screen. I'm getting the server API and using this that API inside this handle register function and sending these details and catching the response into this variable and checking the response whether I have got the successful registration or else anything or else any error, and I'm printing those details. This is regarding the register API.
API. He's asking us to explain the API.
API. Okay. Yeah. Here we have used app. We have created some sort of variable, some sort of instance here, right? We are using that app here and post. Post is a HTTP verb, and we are passing the endpoint. As I mentioned, you endpoint is unique name for every API. It is embedded in the URL. Like you can see here in the localhost URL, we are using some endpoint. It is unique for all the APIs, right? We are passing this endpoint here. Endpoint. We are using that endpoint, and we are passing, and we are using getting some response, request and response here. Request and response here. After that, we are moving to try catch block here. We are pasting this entire code in try block, and after that, if you have any error while executing the part in the try block, we will enter into this catch block and console log that error. Okay. In the try block, we are getting some details. We are getting some details from the client. Like I mean, in from the Android application, we are getting the email ID and password from this mobile application. From this mobile application, we are getting this email ID and password by requesting in the body. We are requesting some parts here, right? By using RUQ. These are the variables, guys. We can use any sort of variables. Like we can use the complete name request, and you can use complete name as response. No issue. For the sake of simplicity, I use these short forms. Yeah, I'm requesting some data, right? I'm requesting this data from the body and storing these email ID and password in these variables. And I'm console and I'm printing both email ID and password. You can see here. I'm printing email ID and password, right? I'm printing these details. And after that, I'm performing some SQL query here. SQL. I'm storing in SQL variable. This I'm storing this query in this SQL variable. What I have stored, what I have written is insert. We have to insert this email ID and password into our table, right? I have written that insert into the table name. We have created the user table right here, like here. I'm inserting the details into the user. What I'm inserting, and what rows I'm inserting. I'm inserting the email and the password. I'm inserting into the email and password. And what values I'm inserting, I need to pass into these values. Yeah, I'm passing these values while running the query. db.run. I'm passing the query, and after that, I'm using this email ID and password, passing dynamically while running the query. While running the query, while I'm running the query, if I got any error, it will move into this if block, and I will print that message here. and we have to send some response, right, regarding that error. The client, what error we are getting, right? What error we are getting. I am console.logging in the server side and sending some response to the client side. Like I mean, currently we are running an Android application, right? Sending some response to that Android application with some status code. With some status code. If I send 300 status code, uh, in the client side, we are validating this status code. Like I will show you. I will show you in the register API. Yeah, we are validating this status code. If I got the response.status as 200, I will print. I'm setting this variable as true. Like I have registered successfully. Set is registered successfully. Uh, if the error occurred, I'm sending the status code as 300, right? It will not move into this if block. It will come to this else block and give an alert message. Alert, registration failed, and please check your credentials. I will get this alert message if the status code is other than 200. Like we are sending the status code 300 right here. We will print this alert message here. Sorry. Yeah. We'll print that alert message here. Else, else if the error not occurred, we will move to this else block and print this message registered successfully. Okay. And after that, we have to send some response regarding the success message, right? We can we can pass this response in this else block. Have moved these to out of these. Don't know why. Okay, no problem. Yeah. Uh, I'm returning some response to the client. If the registration got successful, I'm returning the status code 200 and the success message as true. And if the status code is 200, the registered set is registered is considered as true. And I think this message got printed. Registration successful. Like this. Yeah. And this catch block, if you got any error in this try block, we'll move to this catch block and print the error. I will show you. Here I will pass the empty password. I think it should not take 2 seconds. I'm not validating that. Okay. No problem. In MongoDB, it is similar to while connecting. We are using the express middleware and all the same thing. And we are creating some instance here regarding app. And while connecting to, we need in SQLLite database, we don't need configurations, right? As I mentioned you before. In MongoDB, we need to connect with our database first. We need to connect with our external database. Like I'm using MongoDB Compass here. You can see I have to connect with this MongoDB Compass first to use the database. Okay. For the connection purpose, we use some library called Mongoose library. By using this Mongoose library, we can connect to our MongoDB database. Like I will show you. Yeah, here by using this Mongoose variable, we can connect to our Mongoose, like I mean MongoDB Compass. Like okay, I think this is not the code. Let me move to index.js. Yeah. Yeah, we are connecting. Okay. I will put in the file. Yeah. Yeah. we need to connect these. We need to connect with this database first. Where you can find this link, you can open the MongoDB, MongoDB Compass, and open new window. In this Compass, we will get a link to connect. Yeah, here you can see the URI. With to this URI, you can connect. Instead of this localhost, I have used the yeah, I have used this IP address. While using that localhost, I'm getting some sort of error. So I have used this URL, and this is the port number where the MongoDB Compass is running, and this is the database name. Like you can see here, I'm using restaurant database, right? These are all the databases I have in the MongoDB Compass now. Inside this, I'm using the restaurant database. I need to connect to this restaurant database only, right? Uh, I don't want to connect with this admin, config, grocery, local, and all this. So I'm mentioning the database name after the URI. Okay, after the URI, I need to mention the database name, and this is the thing we need to mention to connect with the new database. New database, I mean, we have created some sort of database here, right? Manually. To connect, sorry, to connect with this, we need to use this URI, use new URI parser true. And after that, dot then. After connecting, you need to print this message. DB connected, console.log, DB connected. You can print that message here. You can see db.connected. If you got any error, If you got any error while connecting to the database, it will come into this try catch, catch block and console log that error here. Yeah, that is regarding this mongoose. This user table is the database that I have created here. Users, and this is the schema for that. You can find the schema here. Where have you? Yeah, got schema here. In MongoDB, you have to create some sort of schema. Like we have created some rows and columns there, right? In MongoDB, you have to create some schema. Schema in the sense structure of the database. Structure of the database. Like we have created some name, image, price, quantity, and this is for menu, I guess. Yeah, this is the user details. You can find this. In user details, you are getting some user ID, name, email ID, password, role, and all these items stored. You can see here. Yeah, you can see here user ID, name, email ID, password, role, and all this. Yeah. I'm importing that here. I'm importing that user table. Yeah, these codes. By using these codes, we can connect with our front end. Like you can pass the front end URL here. You can see the front end URL. You can see the front end URL here. Like we are running the front end at localhost 2002, right? You can use the front end URL here inside the codes. Inside the codes, you can use the front end URL. And the credentials true is for the sake of security. We have used this, and we have to use this express.json for sending the request and response in the form of JSON format. We need to use this, and after that, I have explained these MongoDB connection, right? And after that, it is similar to what I have explained in SQLLite. We need to listen with some port number. I am storing this port number in this .env file, like 3000, and I am using that port number here, app.listen, and the server is now running in 3000 port number. We have created some space in 3000 port number, and we are running uh, the server in that 3000 port number. After running that, after listening to that port number, we are printing some sort of message, server connected, like this message, and we are getting that message here. Okay, and now successfully connected with our server. And let me come to the login API directly. This is the login API here. It is, it look like similar, like we are using Express in both SQL and MongoDB, right? SQLLite and MongoDB, right? It look it looks like similar, but while using the database, it might be changed. Yeah, it is similar app.post and login. This async is asynchronous function. It is asynchronous function. We have to use await here. I will explain you why. It is an asynchronous function, and we are using some request and response here, and we are getting some email ID and password response. Like I'll show you, it is in a web application now. Now we are using web application. Let me refresh this and close this. Yeah. In this login, we are requesting some email ID and password, right? We are sending that email.
Sorry.
Do this. Yes. And we are requesting email ID and password here, right? And we are storing that email ID and password in these two variables. And after that, it is similar. We are placing that in try catch block. And now the difference comes in. In login, in register screen, what we have done is we have performed some insert query, right? For login, we need to check the email ID and password in the database. Whether we are whether the email ID is present in the database or else the password is matching. We need to verify those details, right? For that sake, we have user table. Like I have imported the user table here, right? User table means the schema. The schema we have created. Inside that user table, again we have used find one and passed the email ID. This is the email ID variable, and this is the email ID we are getting the response. We are getting the request from the client. This is the email ID. We are verifying the email ID whether it is present in the database, like I mean MongoDB database or not. Here we are. Here we have these three documents, right? That query will run and check whether the email ID that client has given is mentioned is present in these three documents or not. If the email ID is present, that will return that email ID to this user. Okay. Forgot about this. Okay, forgot about this. This is the role verification. Forgot about this. And let me come to this. Yeah. What we have done is we're encrypting the password while signing up. While signing up, we have given the password, right? By signing up, we have given the password. I think, yeah, where I have mentioned that. I think in schema, yeah. We are encrypting the password by using this uh, encrypted hash. That is not the thing I have to explain now. Yeah. We are encrypting that password while signing up, and we are comparing that password by decrypting that. And this is the code that I have used for encryption. Like I mean, I will show you. I will show you in the database. This is the password. This is the password. It is encrypted, right? It is not in the form of human readable. It having some dollars numbers. I think it is encrypted. It is encrypted, and we are getting some decrypted password from the user. Like I mean, we are getting some sort of password here, right? We need to compare that encrypted password with the user entered password. We are doing that here. I think you don't need this now. Yeah, we are comparing that. If both are not equal, we will respond with some status code here. We are responding with 401. 401 means unauthorized. Unauthorized in the sense we are sending the error message from here itself. Incorrect email or password. Whereas if the compared password is not equal, we are responding with this 401 and this error message also. And I think it is not for you. It is JW2 token. It is another topic. We'll discuss that later. And yeah, and if the password is correct, it will not return right, and it will come outside this if statement, and it will return some status message as success. And this token we have created, it is called JWE token. We will discuss that later, and it will return success message. Or else, if you have any, or else if this condition fails, it will directly move into this and respond with 401 and incorrect email or password, and it is the try password. And this is the login API. And let me show you practically. And I mean, let me show you the UI. I have created a simple UI for sign up, right? Let me register with the details. You enter my name, JV85. Let me enter some password here. Oh, need to copy this password. Oh. When I click on sign up, okay, password length must be 6 characters. I have validated all the things here. Need to copy this password and click on sign up. Yeah, it is redirected to login page directly. You can see when I come to this users database and refresh this, you can see the details I have entered will be registered here. You can see here the name is Jaydeep and the email ID I have entered is entered into this database, and the password I have entered is Jaydeep. You can see the password is encrypted here. A human cannot understand this, right? And these are the variables that have present in the schema, right? And the user ID is created, unique user ID is created, and these are the schema things that are all created while signing up. And let me log into that. Let me log in by using just those credentials here. My JDPU, right? Yeah, Dipu, and paste that password here. And let me check that password and click on login. Yeah, I've successfully logged in, and the home page, and I have redirected to the home page. You can see my profile also here. You can see my profile, Jaydeep, and my email and the location here. What I'm fetching those details from this database, and you can log out also. If you click on log out, it will redirect to the login page again. Yeah. And that's it with login API by using the MongoDB database. And I will show you the login page in the front end also. What request I am using, how I am processing the data. Yeah. Here in the handle login, I have used the same post which I used in Android application, and I'm passing the front end URL. I'm using it as I'm storing these front end like I mean the server URL. Like we have seen that, right? Localhost 3000. I will show you that once. I have stored in .env file. Yeah, you can see the server URL localhost 3000 localhost colon 3000, and I'm using that. Where is the login page? Yeah, I'm using that variable inside this and passing localhost 3000. Let me remove this if you got any confusion. Copy this. I'm changing to, I think server is running in 3000. Yeah. Now it will be clear for you. Yeah. Localhost 3000 and the endpoint is login that we have used here, right? Endpoint login. Yeah. And after passing this URL, we are sending some sort of data. Which data we are passing? We're passing the email ID and password which the user entered in the UI. We are passing those details and with credentials too. It is for security purpose. Don't worry about that. If you remove this, I think it will not work. I think it is some security thing. We'll discuss that later. Yeah. After that, then we will get some response, right? We will get some response from the user, like LLM server. We are sending some response by using response.json, right? For that, we are storing that response in result here. We are storing that response in result and checking that status code result dot status. I think we have converted that to string here. We have converted that to string, and if it is 200, and if it is 200, we are setting some login message. Login message. Okay, we are setting some login message, and we are navigating to the home page. Home page here. Class means home page, and we have to write that in separate after.js. We will discuss that while discussing the React.js part. Now remember that if you successfully registered, like I mean, if you get the 200 status code, you will navigate to the home page. And the cookie got, we will discuss that cookie part in the later session, so don't worry. And if you got any error, uh, other than 200, if you got any error message, we will get into this catch block and check the error. And if the status code is 401 with error, we will display the error message. Like we are sending some error message right here, error message, incorrect email ID and password. We will display that here, like I will show you. If you enter any random password and email ID, to click on this, you can see incorrect email ID and password, incorrect password. We are setting alert. We are setting alert here, right? Incorrect email ID and password. So if you enter any wrong details, the server responds with some error message, and it will come to this catch block, and we will set some alert message here, incorrect email ID and password. And yeah, that's it with this login API here. And we have
We'll make this code as public, so everyone with the link can see that code. Okay. Yeah, thank you for attending the session, guys, and thank you, Jaydeep. Thank you for
yeah,
sharing your knowledge and spending with us with your valuable session.
yeah, thank you guys. Thank